In character, their like never was or will be again. They were intensely loyal to the outfit they were working for and would fight to the death for it. They would follow their wagon boss through hell and never complain. Living that kind of life, they were bound to be wild and brave. In fact, there was only two things the old-time cow puncher was afraid of: a decent woman and being set afoot. I believe the worst hardship we had on the trail was loss of sleep. There never was enough sleep. Our day wouldn't end until about 9 o'clock, when we grazed the herd into the bed ground. After that, every man in the outfit, except the boss and horse wrangler and cook, would have to stand 2 hours night guard. After night guard, I slept till the cook yelled, "Roll out," 3:30. So I would get maybe 5 hours sleep when the weather was nice and everything smooth and pretty. If it wasn't so nice, you'd be lucky to sleep an hour. But the wagon rolled on in the morning just the same. The rain ceased about 10 o'clock when the cattle bedded down easily, and the second guard took them for their watch. Wood was too scarce to afford a fire, and while our slickers had partially protected us from the rain, many of us went to bed in wet clothing that night. After another half-day's drive to the west, we turned northward and traveled in that direction through a nice country, more or less broken with small hills but well watered. When a drove of cattle are stopped for the night, the first thing to do is to find a suitable place to hold them until morning. A camp is usually selected where the ground is level so that all the cattle can be seen at the same time, and also where, if a stampede should occur, the cowboys would have some chance to exert their skill in stopping and rounding them up. A detail of about half a dozen men take charge of the cattle, and during the entire night ride round and round the herd. If the cattle become restless, or if everything gets very quiet and the conditions appear favorable for a stampede, the cowboys on guard will sing as they ride around, hoping to hold the attention of the cattle and to dispel any idea of a stampede that they may entertain. This the cowboy calls singing the cattle to sleep, and long experience has demonstrated that it is a wise precaution. As trail cattle, Longhorns' equal never has been known and never will be. Their hooves are superior to those of any other cattle. They can go farther without water and endure more suffering than others. They can be handled on the trail for less expense. I have never handled any cattle on the trail which space themselves on march as well as they do. From my observation, they have at least double the endurance, and their period of life and usefulness is also about double that of any other. They never shed their teeth from age, and most other breeds do, and all ranchmen would do well to retain their blood in the improved herds as far as practicable. But trained cowboys can manage a great drove of these wild, timid animals as easily and perhaps better than they could a drove of domestic cattle. By the long and constant presence of cowboys on horseback, the cattle become accustomed to them, and their fear gradually leaves. But this is true only when the cowboys are mounted and like centaurs ride into their midst. Should a man dismount in a herd of these cattle, he would be in danger of being trampled to death in a stampede that would ensue. In the excitement of a stampede, a man was not himself, and his horse was not the horse of yesterday. Man and horse were one, and the combination accomplished feats that would be utterly impossible under ordinary circumstances. That night it come up an awful storm. It took all 4 of us to hold the cattle, and we didn't hold them. And when morning come, there was one man missing. We went back to look for him, and we found him among the prairie dog holes, beside his horse. The horse's ribs was scraped bare of hide, and all the rest of horse and man was mashed into the ground as flat as a pancake. The only thing you could recognize was the handle of a 6-shooter. We tried to think the lightning hit him, and that was what we wrote as folks down in Henrietta, Texas, but we couldn't really believe it ourselves. I'm afraid it wasn't the lightning. I'm afraid his horse stepped in one of them holes, and they both went down before the stampede.